If for some reason you do not want to be part of the recording, then don't hesitate to take your video off and or your audio off. And if you would prefer to not verbalize, we also have the chat function as available. I'll probably be doing most of the sort of verbal questioning, answering, where Susan seems to be very good in terms of responding to the text chats. Make sense?
Mhm.
Great. So again, just as a quick update, my name is Billy Gunnels, and we're in crazy days. To say that out loud is pretty obvious, but it does bear repeating. In particular, the type of work that we as a group support, whether it be as individual faculty, whether it be as administrators, staff, sometimes even students, is greatly curtailed because in experiential learning, we typically think of it as an incredibly interpersonal experience where you might have one-on-one, one with small groups type activities. And in the era of COVID-19, and with so many schools so rapidly moving over to an online virtual environment, the ability to replicate the type of experiences that have such positive effects on our students, well, that's a challenge. One of the things is we sort of shifted in, and I'm sure for some of you it was 3 weeks ago, others it may have just been the past few days because we've all been kind of doing that at different paces. But one of the things that we discovered pretty quickly is that our imagination individually was pretty limited. And just by good fortune, I had a few conversations with Susan as a counselor, either through URP, undergraduate research programs, or student programming task force, where just coincidentally, we were meeting within days of our institutions making this transition. And what we discovered is by having some conversations and really being able to ask some questions and being able to listen, we're getting a lot of really incredible ideas just because of this privileged access. You know, we just had the chance, because of normal everyday operation, to have those conversations. So what we decided to do is really kind of create an environment where people would have similar opportunities to talk about different issues. Last week, we had a discussion about virtual conferences and how, when possible, we might be able to create student symposia for our individuals that would normally have presented this spring. We did record that session. That is now posted up on Career Community if you want to enjoy it. Please do. It looks like a wall of faces with different voices talking. So it is a little bit of comedy inherent within it. We're going to do the same today because one of the other things we kind of recognize is if we try to have these conversations in really large formats, well, then one of two things would kind of occur, neither of which we preferred. One of it could be that we would be talking at. And, you know, I'm individually not that gifted. I can't speak for Susan. She's pretty brilliant. But there's not a lot there just by my own ideas, my own insights. And therefore, there would be a lot of hubris to assume that for some reason I could just, you know, wax poetic and you all would just sit there and be amazed. No. The second reason we wanted to limit the overall size is because when we get to larger groups, what we found is a few individuals, for no fault of their own, would just kind of start to dominate the entire proceedings. And a lot of other voices that may have either questions, concerns, or ideas weren't really getting that opportunity to share their insights. So that's sort of the reason behind the format that we're approaching. The last thing is we're trying to set up sessions that address specific issues and considerations that are important for us as a community. And one of the challenges that I think many of us have confronted almost immediately, whether it be in an administrative role or whether it be as faculty with our own students, is how do we continue that mentorship in this type of environment? So obviously we can make some changes during the course of our discussion, but if we can, I'm really hoping that we can kind of explore different ways in which we know people are doing it, different strategies which people are seeing, different challenges that people are confronting. Does this all make sense? Sound like a plan? Awesome. So I have a series of questions that we could go through, but if there's something that someone else really wants to make sure we address immediately, please, let's open it up. And
Bill-
two last little things. I'm going to unmute everybody unless you want to be muted at this point. And there's a simple reason. The conversations become real stilted if people try to go find their mute as they want to talk. If they have kids in the background, then yay, they're going to yell at some point. If there's a dog that ends up being underneath your feet, then fine. These are really weird, chaotic times. Do not phase anything that might occur. If it does occur and you find it disruptive, then go ahead and mute yourself. But otherwise, yeah, anything that someone wants to address right off the bat.
I'd like to hear how other universities are addressing their summer research programs.
Margaret, that would be a great idea. We have a session on Thursday to address that issue in particular. And anyone in this group, if you want me to sign you into that, I'm very happy to do so. And then maybe what we could do is take the last 10 or 15 minutes to address summer programs today.
Billy, can you send the link out for that?
I will.
Billy, I also put in the chat, I uploaded a Google Doc and a Google folder. So if folks have resources that they want to share, we'll keep these open, similar to what we did for the virtual symposia. So just know that those are there. I have some documents that I'll upload, but if y'all come across things, know that those are available for your use.
Thank you.
I want to know how institutions are taking care of undergraduate research for credit that's going on in the spring this semester.
UNF is continuing to give grants to students who have completed research grant applications through the spring.
What about other people?
What we did at IUPUI is telling students if their projects can be completed remotely to please do so and work with their mentors. Also encouraging everybody to submit an abstract and a poster, because we will, like everybody else, have a virtual poster conference. And just telling them, if right now, especially if it's a lab-based project, you can't really finish it, it doesn't matter. Research is a snapshot in time. Just whatever you accomplish till before spring break or early March is what goes into your abstract or your poster. Otherwise, we do understand that you cannot complete the project.
At CU Boulder, our final survey, which students complete at the end of their spring semester projects, has always allowed for things to fall apart. So instead of a report, there is the option to submit a reflection on the whole experience. So that has remained unchanged for us, except for the fact that many more will be writing reflections rather than reports.
At Austin College, we're a small liberal arts college, so it's probably a different scope and scale. But our administration was pretty adamant about making sure that students still had opportunities and that faculty weren't really able to. We hadn't hit our drop deadline or anything, so there were opportunities to drop them or switch to SDU, and we were told very adamantly from our administration that we must continue to work with them and find a way to continue to work with them remotely. And so that's part of my job, is to try and start some discussions with faculty to help them feel supported, that they can find ways to come up with literature reviews or something else to expand that opportunity for the students, even if they don't have the data, because we have a Jan term in a weird system. We only had like 4.5 weeks of classes in the spring semester before spring break came and everything all went to crapper. Yeah, it's. I wish I had a better answer for you, other than we're finding a way to do it, and faculty are going to have to come up with something. Basically, is what we've been told.
So I'm like Lance. We're at a small PUI, upstate New York in Rochester, and really the opposite situation feels like it happened. I mean, we dropped everything and went home in a day, and there's been a very minor communication about any support for helping students and faculty even finish out the spring. So I am in the situation where I'm trying to learn from all of you how I can be the best advocate I can be to hopefully have a budget for the summer. We used Evaluate UR as part of the pilot last summer to coach along students and mentors with the mentoring, and we really loved it. So if I get my way and we get to mentor students in the summer, I will absolutely purchase access to Evaluate UR for some support around mentoring.
Other approaches that people are using.
At Grand Valley State University, we have programs that we're running yet this winter semester. I think similar to UC Boulder, we're allowing students to submit reports or reflections depending on what they've been able to accomplish. For our summer programs, we have 5 summer programs that are scheduled to run. We plan on having those run regardless, but having them run virtually. For my colleagues in the lab sciences, clearly they're not going to be able to be in lab, and we do not know when they'll be able to get in, whether that's June, July, or August. So we're giving faculty and students opportunities to redo their project scope as well as some of their mentoring statements. Those will be due at the end of April, and we'll reassess at that time. We're also creating, similar to what Billy's doing virtual research assistants for the summer, so we can provide students a wage, since there aren't a lot of employment opportunities, at least across Michigan.
And I do apologize. Can everyone, when you do speak, introduce yourself and also where you're at? I know we're doing low piecemeal, and I know I definitely did not. So, yeah. I think one of the important things, and I think this is sort of the root of the question as much as we can, ensure our students, if we don't know exactly what that solution is right now, that we will try to be working to find them a solution. Maybe it's something as, nice as you already have established, Tim, but a lot of our students are very stressed. And then also ensure our faculty that we're going to be trying to find ways in which they can navigate this environment, because they're as flipped around as anybody else at this point in time.
Billy, David Solomon at Christopher Newport University.
Thank you.
I know we're going to talk about summer programs specifically on Thursday, but one of the best things that I've done is to, as you just mentioned, to really be in good communication with both my students and my faculty, and to let them know where we're at as we're going along. So, for example, I emailed both groups this morning to let them know where we were at on decisions about summer. I sent out a survey to the faculty the day after we closed, actually, asking them about the possibility of virtualizing their summer project with the student and what that might look like. And I gave them a Likert scale about, how much of a pain in the ass is this going to be? And surprisingly, really only 2 of, it actually said that, 2 of the 54 said it would just not be possible because their project was doing animal research with students, and there's just nothing they can do. But I'm happy to say 52 of the 54 said, they'll figure something out. So we haven't made that decision yet, but if we have to, we at least know it's there.
This is Corinne Wierzinski from Michigan State. Something I want the group to consider is size of institution. When we've talked to our summer program partners, and we don't control them, they have their own funding from the NSF, NIH, whatever it may be. So they control their programs. But at MSU, for example, the president has decided that summer classes will be online, at least the first session. And when trying to think of a policy that is applicable to all students on campus, if the university is saying it's not safe for students to be physically on campus, I, in good conscience, cannot allow students to come on campus to physically be in laboratories. It's just not essential. Yep. We have talked to a lot of our summer partners, and only a small percentage feel like they could work remotely. I mean, these are areas like physics, computer science, computer engineering, areas that you wouldn't be surprised by. A lot of the folks in life sciences and lab-based experiences say, 80 to 90% of their research is in person. So what we're struggling with right now is people are looking to the undergraduate research office and the associate provost for undergrad education to make some statement, because NSF has said it's up to you It's up to your institutions, and we're trying to provide a flexible policy that takes the type of research into consideration, but puts student safety at the utmost. And I have an epidemiologist as a president. This epidemic isn't going to be over in 4 to 6 weeks. I mean, we're making plans to potentially even start classes in the fall and then be prepared to go back online for 3 to 4 weeks. And undergraduate research is seen as secondary.
There's a good reason for that. It is.
Thank you.
It's an incredible value-added experience, but it does not align directly with the primary focus of any of our institutions. And in those situations where it's impossible for a variety of circumstances, that is totally understandable. How can we maintain some of the benefits that emerge from undergraduate research, even in that challenging environment that you just shared with us, Corinne? What sort of approaches can we do? Because there is a tremendous amount of benefit our students and our faculty get from these relationships and from these efforts, which sometimes cannot be addressed in the ways that we would typically think about. You know, if you need to be in a physics lab because you've got to run instrumentation there, what can we do under that cases? So what are some approaches and ideas people have had or heard that have helped people still maintain these connections to the benefit of our students and our faculty?
This is Margaret Marr from Bucknell University. Some of our faculty in the lab sciences are proposing that they do literature searches remotely with their students until the university can reopen, on the hopes that it will open sometime in the middle of the summer.
Yep, great example. Other things that we could be doing. Dominique.
Dominique Gali, IUPUI. What I've communicated to our lab mentors, and I don't know about your institutions, but our labs are currently closed as well, unless there's essential COVID work going on. And assuming they open again in summer or no later than fall, I've told them if they are able to run the labs with technicians or postdocs, to just generate data sets and share the data sets with the students, that the students can analyze them from home.
Mm-hmm.
That would be in addition to literature review, but really analyzing the data, understanding them, and interpreting them.
Tim O'Neill, CU Boulder. One of the things that our faculty are being encouraged to do, and it's something that our students could participate in quite a bit, is compliance. So our IRB office, IACUC, are encouraging faculty to take advantage of the opportunity to get a lot of this compliance documentation done. This is an opportunity for students to plug into that work and get that experience. But generally, our campus advice coming from our Vice Chancellor for Research is to, use this space effectively as researchers, and in many ways, the things faculty are being encouraged to do are more accessible to our undergraduates than the things they would be doing on campus and in the lab. So in many ways, literature reviews are a great way to stay busy, but there's a lot of other work that faculty are doing now when they can't get into the lab. And I would encourage everyone to, ask your faculty to think about how they can bring students into the current situation and what they are needing to do in response.
David Solomon and Christopher Newport again. The problem that I'm having is that I've had to talk more than one student down off the ledge in the last week. They're freaking out.
Yep.
And the students I have who are participating in programs in my office for undergraduate research, this is not the most paramount thing on their mind at the moment. They're trying to figure out how to finish their classes. Some of them are supposed to graduate in May. And so I'm having trouble sometimes, undergraduate research is my entire world because I'm the director of the program. but I realize that that might not be a priority for some of these students for whom, you know, I mean, what's going on is just, you know, what can you say? But I mean, I have had to have Zoom chats with several students in the last week who just really were basically in the midst of a meltdown because they're just so anxious about everything that's going on. Not to mention, you know, remember that some of them don't necessarily have the best situations at home, and I've had a couple of those as well.
I think, except Susan Mendoza from GVSU, again, Grand Valley State University, I think accessibility takes on a different meaning. So kind of getting at the point where students are overwhelmed. We had a discussion this morning with my team about, do we slide the summer? So do we slide it back a week or two? And so folks have an opportunity to do those compliance things, to really think about what is achievable during the summer, working with their library faculty. Our library faculty have been phenomenal in terms of providing faculty support with what they might do, but accessibility is an issue that we're trying to put in the forefront. We have McNair Scholars within our office as well, so having a conversation with students about, do they have reliable access to the internet? Do they have a computer? Do they have a space in which they can work? Because some folks don't have spaces at home in which they can work, and trying to think through some of those issues. So that's been a challenge for us. And then also trying to communicate students' needs to faculty. So where students might not be able to do the things we normally think they should. So we're backing up a little bit and trying to really re-examine what accessibility means. For undergraduate research, it's doable, but it's going to look very, very different.
Yeah, one of the things that's actually been floated here that my provost mentioned was the idea of moving our summer scholars program, which is supposed to begin June 1, and having it begin June 21st. It sounds wonderful, but I don't think it's going to happen, to be honest. I think we have to look at going virtual if we're going to do anything. I mean, he's still talking about doing face-to-face. The problem with the compliance stuff is our IACUC and IRB committees are no longer meeting. The campus is shut down. Our library was finally closed late last week, so the librarians are also all working remotely now. It's a whole new world, as they say in, is it The Little Mermaid?
Thank you for the Little Mermaid reference. My name is Jane Muir. I'm at Cal Poly SLO, San Luis Obispo, which is one of the Cal States. And we have a really big summer undergraduate research program, so about 400 students with on-campus funding plus grant-supported students. And so the colleges are approaching it in different ways. The College of Engineering, for example, decided that they're only going to support projects that could be done virtually as needed, but also could be done face-to-face. And so they're reevaluating who's being funded. In the chat, I had put down that the way we're trying to think about what would a virtual experience do is to think about all of the different things that come out of student research experiences. And so just a small sort of part of that, of course, is the new knowledge and the hands-on research skills and the new disciplinary expertise. There's also a bunch of other things, as people have mentioned, and so I just put in the areas of student development that I say CIMMER, I'm not sure if other people say that, the Center for the Improvement of Mentored Experiences in Research identifies, and then thinking about what are we, for students who can't do their planned research experience for the summer because it requires the lab, are there still ways in which we can support their researcher identity, their professional and career development? For example, like, can a journal club facilitated by more senior undergraduates or master's students or faculty in their particular research area or adjacent to it, give them some of those skills and familiarity so when they come back into the lab, their context for doing that work is enhanced. And so I guess I'd be really interested to know what are the outcomes of student research that you all are prioritizing as you're deciding what is it that we can do in this context.
So if I can, I'm going to come back to that question you just asked, Jane, because I think there's really two very important points that we all need to remember. And one of them is the faculty and the administrators that support student research are some of the most accessible individuals for students. Students come to confide to you. They come to confide to your colleagues that are involved in research, and maintaining those opportunities for our students as well as our colleagues is absolutely critical. Sometimes they're going to come because they want the research. It allows them a sense of balance and sort of presence within kind of the topsy-turvy that this all is. But as you mentioned, David, sometimes they're going to be coming in because there's something besides research, but you're that person that is there. One of them, probably the most important reasons that we really do need to maintain proactive relationships through mentoring, not just ourselves, but also our colleagues, is exactly for that mechanism to be present for our students. And then Jen, I love what you sort of talked about. Undergraduate research is not the priority, but it is one of the best tools that we still have to really foster and develop the skills among our students. And what sort of skills in this type of environment would be particularly important to you as you think about sort of some of the programming that you're trying to sustain or modify for this period of time? I know for us, my campus, it's really most importantly about communication. You know, and later we're going to ask you a question about sort of how do you collaborate in these virtual environments. But personally for myself, in terms of my research students, we're collaborating through a lot of live writing. For those that are still in the data collection process, they're invited to come in and participate with those who are now in the writing process so that there's more opportunities to see what's going to happen later because they can't collect the data right now. I'm one of those animal biologists you referred to, David, and you know, we just can't get out. But I can bring in a student that's early in the process to collaborate with the students that's much later in the process so that both of them are really going through that writing process. And then I get to be there. When their headspace is ready for the work, we work. When their headspace is ready for something else, we're something else. What are some other skills that you guys are trying to, or you think would be really important to develop during this time?
I think on our campus, I don't think we're unusual in this regard, but time management is a huge, huge issue when it comes to undergraduate research. And the present context thoroughly complicates time management for students. I probably am not the only one on this screen who's struggling with time management in a new context with, you know, my son in the background and 100 other things. So to me, it seems like this is an opportunity for us to provide some guidance to students when it comes to how to manage courses and project obligations and other things that have now just been completely reshuffled. That seems to be a significant challenge for our students as we're hearing from them.
Great. What are some other things that we could uniquely do now?
I don't know that it's uniquely, but I was going to say one of the things that I'm trying to emphasize with my students and moving forward on is oftentimes if they're going to be working in the lab, the focus is on getting a proposal and your experimental design framework done in, you know, an expedited time frame, 2-3 weeks, right? Because it's got to go out. In my case, for certain types of projects, has to be approved by the department and other things like that. And so now we have more time. And so talking through experimental design, instead of them coming to me and showing me the data from the experiment they did this week and then reminding them that they forgot to do the negative control and they therefore can't interpret anything and they have to redo it, now is more of the time to actually talk through, have them come up with the experimental design. What are the samples that you need? How would you go ahead and set this up? And then maybe talk through, okay, what's missing? What's not missing here? What's interpretable? What's not interpretable? And doing more of that on the front end so that hopefully, you know, when they can get back in the laboratory, they can hit the ground running a little bit faster.
This is Catherine Bates from Boise State University. And on that same note, like, I think slowing down makes sense. And so taking the time to have the mentor work through with students on what is the research question, what is the significance of the work, the background information, having them be able to both write that, communicate that, you know, whether that's in Zoom meetings across the lab or one-on-one between the faculty and the student. But often I think students struggle with that naturally, and this opportunity where you have more time might lend students the opportunity to actually work through some of those elements of their research projects.
This is Gerald Griffin from Hope College. Related to that as well is maybe a great idea to help students build grants. So for instance, NSF GRFP, since that's due in October or early fall, this might be a good time to start working on those grants, like thinking about the appropriate controls, also reflecting on previous and current research experiences and how that's helping them develop into the type of researcher they want to be.
I wonder if it would be possible for folks outside of the lab sciences, they can continue to do some really rewarding work with all of the same learning outcomes, or at least many of them can. Econometrics, humanities projects, many of the social science projects. The folks in the lab sciences are, as we pointed out, a little bit more constrained. But I wondered if it would be possible to start working on their scientific writing with them, and that the students could collaborate with the faculty on whatever they're writing. And this is a unique time when you're not in the lab, you can start focusing on trying to get your publications out. Could the students aid in that in some way, to work with data that the faculty have already collected in other contexts? I mean, some of the key things that research teaches students is critical thinking and problem solving. And this is problem solving galore, and the creativity that's necessary to solve those problems. So those are some of the key outcomes that I would like to see, is problem solving, critical thinking. Sadly, the independence that I see our students learn during the summer, during a summer of research, to take care of themselves in a context when the university is not taking care of them the same way, they're just going to have to be home. But that creates a whole other set of challenges. As others have pointed out, many of our students live in very challenging circumstances. And so navigating around that to still be intellectually active is another set of problems that they could benefit from experiencing.
It's great.
Margaret, I think your idea is definitely feasible. So again, I'm at a smaller college at Austin College, small liberal arts college. But I did take a student, I guess about 2 years ago now, I did an independent study with a student where she was actually a chemistry major, wasn't really in my area, but I knew her and trusted her really well and did exactly that. We had a structured project. It started out one semester. You're going to analyze this data set. You're familiar with some of the techniques. It was all animal work. And since she was employed as an animal caretaker, she knew some of the details a little bit more carefully. So it wasn't like completely unexposed, but just it wasn't in a research setting. It ended up taking longer than I thought it would, but it was definitely a good experience to have the student in actually analyzing the data, writing the manuscript, and it was really truly a student written manuscript when it was done and we submitted it. It ended up being a 2-semester directed study in order to get it done. And I won't say that I have an answer and I couldn't, post a curriculum to the Google Doc or something to tell you that this is how you could do it, because I think I have still a lot that I'm processing and still learn from that experience. But it is possible to use the student as the author. I've tried it and I've had, some level of success doing it.
So we've talked about some of the constraints that exist in trying to mentor in this virtual environment. We've talked about a lot of solutions or ways to address being flexible, thinking about what we're trying to get the students to learn, thinking about the entire research process and the different places where this really does provide a very unique chance to do some work that frequently gets put on the back burner as you're collecting data. You know, I think the idea of writing is dead on, not only the proposal part, but also writing up the papers and the manuscripts, no question about it. What are some other constraints besides those that we have addressed? Because frequently we need to know where the challenges are before we can start to think through what type of solutions might be available.
This is Catherine from Boise State. I don't have an answer, but I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the support we're providing our faculty. So, you know, so taking that question a little bit further, like what is the support, the training, the resources that we can provide faculty so that they can, you know, serve in this new mentoring role that is new than anything they've probably done before?
Great question. Just so you guys know, I will be leading this for my faculty on Wednesday and a second session for my faculty on Friday. Both Wednesday and Friday are about how to mentor and how to collaborate in a virtual environment. We're really kind of doing the same thing, asking them a series of questions to see what they come up with so that they're the ones kind of making the decisions about how to do it. And then doing the same thing for the teaching faculty, how to create experiential learning opportunities in sort of a virtual environment. So they're not just recording, you know, culture videos and then just posting them up with assignments. So there could be some more interactive approaches. But Catherine, I think you're so dead on. How do we not only support the students, how do we support the faculty so that they're making this transition? I can't speak for you guys. I had exactly 5 days to learn how to teach online. You know, there was we're not going to close under any condition on a Tuesday morning and on a Wednesday evening saying, see ya, goodbye. That was a good 36-hour period. And then on Monday at 7:30 a.m., we were going live. Yeah, there was a little bit of a learning curve. So that's true for probably the vast majority of our people. What are some other ways in which you can help support your faculty and staff? Because this is the approach we're going to be using on our campus. These kind of conversations and discuss that ideas. What are some other things?
So I think we tried to do coffee talks throughout the summer where we get students and faculty together. Sometimes we separate out the students and the faculty and, you know, just discuss whatever the topic is or things we need to go over. So I think being mindful that regular check-ins on Zoom, for example, with each other, just as faculty, to let people say what's going on, because it's going to feel very different and new, and just to hear from each other might be helpful.
Yeah.
It just seems like use what we're using.
I think we're really relying on our Faculty Development Center, who has been just heroic in their efforts of helping our faculty transition to remote teaching, which is new for all of us. And so in announcing that we are going forward with our undergraduate research program in the summer and indicating that we will fund remote, we will fund probably hybrid that could finish in the summer or finish in the fall. If we do end up opening, say, I mean, I don't expect to open probably before July 1st. And so definitely funding remote, hybrid. But our Faculty Development Center, I think we see it 3 phases. One is to already start compiling resources around remote mentoring, which is, you know, like things like this that I'm learning from, and just put that somewhere for faculty. 2, start talking to faculty now, because I think they don't even really know what remote versus hybrid, and they just need to know what the options are and what that would look like, and have people help them talk through it before they make any decisions. And then once they make the decision of getting on board with something that involves remote, figuring out what tools they need at that point. So kind of taking it sort of step by step. But we're relying heavily on our Faculty Development Center because they're the experts in this. Yep. And then we have a few faculty who are a little bit more comfortable in this space, who are kind of ambassadors. Like I'd put something in the chat, like one of our biologists is really out in front of this, trying to help people already think of ways. So if you can identify faculty that seem to be, have the space, this person's actually on sabbatical right now, so he's looking to be helpful to faculty who are teaching. So finding those ambassadors that can help their peers adjust and be creative. But definitely, I mean, for us, it's really our Faculty Development Center that is helping us move this forward and support our faculty.
Could you say again the name of your institution, please?
Sorry, Furman University.
Thank you.
This is Susan again from Grand Valley State University. I think the first thing, Billy, when you asked the question I thought of is normalizing the anxiety. I think that's something, at least, not to be critical of my institution, however, we didn't do very well. I had a lot of faculty colleagues who feel like they're failing their students. And I think that feeling might be more intense when it comes to mentoring research. The other thing that we're going to start doing, and it's always been very helpful for us, is really pulling together dialogues across disciplines, because in the humanities and social sciences, some of these things are more comfortable when it comes to virtual mentoring, as opposed to in the lab and field-based sciences. So we're going to start doing some of those components. And similar to what was said earlier, we're talking to folks about it now. So I have a sense of what resources they need. We have our largest kind of, I don't say functional, our largest group of biochemists that do the most active work had to leave their labs because it was taken over by the hospital downtown. So they are clearing out their lab space so they can make room for patient overflow. So one of my questions to them was, what do you need? You're setting up a new lab. What can I provide that I normally might not? So I'm kind of throwing off my traditional constraints and asking them where they need the most support. And I found it's really having discussions and dialogue with one another. So that is incredibly helpful for them. And like I said, it normalizes their worry about doing stuff like this on Zoom.
So one of the constraints is helping our faculty make the adjustment. Are there additional constraints that we're going to be challenged with in terms of, regardless of what we want to call it, making sure that our students have as high quality experience as possible, making sure our faculty have as high quality experience as possible? One of the ones that we're challenged with, and I don't have good answers for it, is probably at least 5 to 10% of our students do not have reliable access to online services. And we're challenged not only in sort of the academic educational environment, but obviously for anything that the student wants to do above and beyond that. And this is particularly important because those students generally are benefited by these type of experiences that are not just about getting a single grade in a class and moving on from one credit to another. People found approaches for how to make sure there are access points to all of our students.
My campus has in Austin College, Lance Austin College in Sherman, Texas. We are in Sherman, Texas. We are 90 minutes outside of Dallas. There have only really been 2 cases of COVID that have shown up within the county. So we are somewhat isolated. So our approach has been, for those students who can't access it, they're allowed on campus. So we have a low density. We've spread them out across campus. And in a lot of ways, if they're not leaving campus, they're not going to Dallas, we're giving them a lot of education, and if they're staying on our campus, I hate to say it, but quite frankly, they're probably safer there than if they're at home and going to the grocery store for their parents in areas where the disease is far more widespread. So I'm not saying it's the best approach, but for right now, for a community where we don't have typical online teaching or remote teaching, where most of my faculty colleagues don't even know what VPN is and how to even access their server drives from home or anything yet, this was the way to allow some faculty and some students to feel secure in having a guaranteed access. So our food service is open, our internet is open, all that kind of stuff, but it's low density.
Yep. Any other thoughts or ideas?
When we transitioned to online, one of the things our campus did was pull all of our laptops that were in our teaching labs and gave them out to students who wouldn't have access to a device, along with Wi-Fi access codes. I have no idea if this is all working at this point. We're also in the middle of piloting an Apple iPad one-to-one initiative. And before this even happened, I had asked to have that pilot set of iPads for the summer research. So I'll keep asking, but some way to give them access to a device and free Wi-Fi. I don't know how reliable that is, though.
One of the important points about this topic, and you guys are kind of addressing it, is a lot of times our presidents, our provosts, our deans are very focused in on the most immediate primary consideration of the school. At least on our campus, our office has very much been the place which is addressing the next stage of what they should start thinking about and being a really good liaison to them to make sure that we're not just doing the minimum, but we start to try to build capacity to make sure that we can serve our students as appropriately as possible. My guess is you are the exact same voices on your campuses. So if you do have that opportunity or that sort of receptive upper administration, constantly having those conversations to encourage them, exactly what you were just talking about, Christine. If they hadn't already come up with that, is it just a great thing to do? We're challenged with some students. Do we have laptops that we can loan out? Do we know where the people can get the Wi-Fi? You know, in Lance's case, great, they can come to campus, but as you've heard from a few people, that's not an option at all. You know, the campus is completely locked out. And when you're trying to just think about how to get people registered or how to get people into a particular class, these type of questions tend to be secondary considerations, and you guys have that ability to make sure they get addressed where possible. I want to promise the last 10 minutes because I know Margaret mentioned it, and this is a really important consideration. We will spend time on Thursday addressing it in particular, but summer programming, a lot of our conversation about virtual mentoring has also included that. What sort of things are people dealing with presently in terms of the normal traditional summer programming you have to offer? And while again, maybe research isn't the most important thing in terms of the university's mission right now, we're in a situation where our students are trying to get education, they're also trying to get paid. And there is no employment out there for a college-age student. And undergraduate research is one of the most viable options if it is available to you. So how to get it is not only a situation of making sure that the students have those experiential opportunities that really help them become the best version of themselves, but really is a fundamentally pragmatic issue of getting them a paycheck. I live here in Southwest Florida. We're an entirely tourist-based economy, and our age bracket is that 65 and older age bracket. They make up more than 35% of the local community. So there are clear issues in terms of a lot of movement around here because of how at risk we can put others. So my students can't get a job. They can't work in restaurants. They can't work at shops. They really can't find something. Are you guys having some ways in which to support these programs? And are there ways in which you're able to use some of these extra considerations to help advance those opportunities?
Billy, at Christopher Newport, I have students who are working currently as research apprentices for the spring semester, and I'm allowing them to continue working throughout the rest of the semester so long as they can figure out how to do meaningful work with their faculty mentors, and I've been in touch with the mentors about that as well. As far as the summer is concerned, I'm going to really push and advocate that we move the program virtual. It's supposed to begin June 1. The Governor of Virginia just announced within this hour, as we've been on this webinar, that we are now closed until June 10th. The state is closed, we're in a lockdown. So Virginia's not for lovers anymore, folks. Don't come here. So I'm really going to push that we virtualize the program, because I think students do need, as you're saying, I mean, it really is important. This may be a really significant source of income for them besides the academic benefit.
Yeah, at CU Boulder, we distribute funds as a lump sum stipend payment at the beginning of our grant term. We inform students we're not going to revoke any of that funding. So we don't have the extra complication of timesheets or anything like that. They've just received their funding. We've also told summer applicants that they will have the option to shift their timeline to the academic year. So we select both the summer and the academic year at the same time. We have all those proposals in review right now. And so as we make awards, students can just basically shift their timeline to the academic year if it's just impossible to set up that project for the summer.
Margaret, then Dominique.
I'm curious what the funding source is for the people that provide stipends. Many universities across the country are expecting financial crises and are reticent to throw the cash out the window or dedicate it to dedicated students or anything else because they're not sure how long that's going to last. However, endowed funds that are endowed for the purposes of undergraduate research are limited in scope and can't be used for other things. So at, say, Christopher Newport or others, are you relying on, or Furman, are you relying on operating budgets, and are your administrators willing to do that?
Yeah, Christopher Newport, our funds are built into the operating budget. Our undergraduate research was our QEP for SACS accreditation, and we're still in the midst of the 5-year period. But certainly I've been in touch with the person who does budgeting for academic affairs to talk about how this is going to work. And I'm hoping that sometime in the next couple of weeks, I'll have an actual response from the provost about whether or not we're still going to be able to dedicate the funds to this. Because yes, the program that I run for the summer, just the summer program, costs about $250,000. And yes, they certainly may need that back in order to pay the heat bill, but we'll have to see. I'm not sure.
At Furman, you had asked about specifically Furman. To our administration's credit, they're continuing to fund at the same amount they would normally fund. This is one of those moments where we're making tough decisions and they're making this a priority for now. And that's operating, that's grants, that's endowments. It's a large sum of money. I mean, we have probably normally in a summer about 200 to 220 students on campus and funded in various different ways. But we just got the word last week that we're going to continue to fully fund students in the summer for both research and internships. Again, they will automatically receive their stipends if they could do it fully remote. If we're trying to give people the biggest runway as possible for hybrids, so, can you plan on starting July 1st? Okay, then you can do remote up until July 1st and then finish out in July, or do remote and then finish out in the fall. So we're basically just trying to give as many options and funding. The ones that require some type of in-person research at some point, we're just basically saying, look, we just have to wait on maybe that half of the stipend occurs for the remote part, and then you receive the second half when the in-person actually occurs. But to our administration's credit, it's allowing all that and this is one thing they're hanging on to in terms of finances for now.
Dominique?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to this. We're kind of in the same situation. The financial side has not been approved yet. So I've been told to just go forward if there are remote projects, but there's no guarantee as of yet whether the money will be available. I had to put in some arguments, some justification as to why summer programming should continue. And this goes for all summer programs, not just research, but service learning, etc. So one, I brought up that you mentioned, Billy, and others, the financial hardship, that many students who usually work in summer, there won't be jobs. So that's one way of supporting them. But secondly, there's a concern at our institution that students will drop out. And so I think it is very important to keep them connected to the university over the summer, and just making programs available is one way of doing it.
Yeah, I kind of a similar situation down here at Austin College, where we have about a third of our students are economically disadvantaged. And so I made the same argument as Billy said, and I was asked to make recommendations and just submitted the report right before I got on this call, where I recommended that those programs that can be run remote, often that have endowed funds, are allowed to continue as normal. And that those programs that run off institutional funds, I actually, particularly in the lab sciences, I made some recommendations that the administration consider changing the model. So maybe it's not in person in the laboratory, and that the time commitment might be reduced, which means that we might be able to pay smaller stipends. It's not ideal, but if I'm choosing between trying to get a little bit of money to the students as opposed to having the program canceled altogether, I'll kind of take the middle ground and try and get it. So it'll be smaller stipends to the faculty, smaller stipends to the students in order to have that program exist in some form. But my biggest problem that I'm worried about right now coming from my faculty is I'm not sure I'm going to have the same response that Christopher Newport had, where everybody is going to want to be on board virtually. I had a bunch of faculty who told me, no, I have grant funds. My students will be here this summer. I don't, you know, I'm going to be in the lab. I'm like, oh yeah, you don't really get to make that choice. And so I'm concerned a little bit about that, coupled with the fact that our summer program is usually about 80% young, early first experience students. We usually use the summer program to train them, and then the experienced students stick around the academic year. And so I have a whole pile of applications and a whole applicant pool that is not consistent with the skills that faculty are going to need for writing and remote learning and authoring papers and complex data analysis of existing data sets and all those kinds of things. So I've got now a mismatch potentially with the student applicants, and then how to deal with that in a fair and equitable way. But I was trying to hold some of that off till Thursday. I got a little ahead of myself, Billy.
No, it's fine. Does anyone have a last comment? And maybe most importantly, I want to say thank you guys. This is a crazy period of time. It is nothing that I could have imagined nor expected. And what I have seen personally is an exceptional amount of work and effort to accommodate as many things as we can, both within the narrow confines of undergraduate research, but then also within the broader sort of educational and professional opportunities that we're trying to give students, our colleagues, and the faculty. And it's honestly, it's awesome. We're all stuck with different situations. You know, this last conversation, I've been told no uncertain terms, all budgets are frozen. As you guys talked about, I have hundreds of thousands dedicated towards the summer, and I cannot spend a cent of it. But there are a lot of times you can get some pretty good things. This morning, I'm talking to our foundation, our philanthropy group, and they gave me some seed money to get going, knowing what the issues are. And they also give the opportunity to continue building on that. The type of dialogues and type of relationships you guys develop are the means to which we're able to get this process done as effectively as possible. Hopefully things will turn around soon, but I'm sure we're going to learn a hell of a lot during the time. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to participate in Thursday, please send me an email. I know people have been posting things to the chat, and I appreciate that. But as strange as everyone else is, I'm also trying to keep organizationally on top of stuff. There are a few more positions to register, but why don't you not register so if someone new comes on, they can do it. Just send me an email saying that you would like to participate on Thursday. I will add you to the list, and that one will be more specifically about summer programs. We only had about 10 minutes today, so I'm sure there'll be a much more rich dialogue from there. Sound like a plan? Guys, have a lovely afternoon and keep it up, all right?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And Susan, can you stick around for a minute?
As everybody logs off, Billy, I'm just going to ask you real quick because I just
fire.
can't seem to find anything in my inbox right now. Everything's just getting swamped. What time is it on Thursday? I know I registered for it. The time.
Let me, and I'll send you out a reminder the day before.
I think it's 11:30.
It is scheduled for 11:30 Eastern Standard, so I think that's 10:30 your time.
10:30 my time. Okay. All right. Yeah, I just scheduled academic advising over it, so I'll just go have to remove some students.